technology what it does is it results in the conversion of methanol via a process inside the system of there's a little bit of heat and actually no pressure, and then it converts that methanol into a hydrogen-rich gas. So it's not pure hydrogen. If you want to think of it as a hydrogen blend, and that's actually one of the positive things about it. It provides an excellent safety feature because it's not that 100% hydrogen. Mm-hmm. And once the system is up and running, it produces a constant flow of hydrogen gas, which is about 100 liters an hour, or 5,000 liters. Sorry, 100 liters per minute, 5,000 liters per hour. This gas is then immediately on demand, and that's one of the other great features, is that we don't have to store it like a lot of other hydrogen fueling systems. When we turn it on, it obviously produces the hydrogen. When you turn it off, it stops producing hydrogen. And the intent is to use it in a dual fuel system where we feed the hydrogen into a large internal combustion engine to allow for diesel dual fueling with the hydrogen gas as a supplementary gas to the primary diesel fuel. In other words, the hydrogen will displace some of the diesel that is utilized in the combustion process.
So I'm a diesel vehicle, right? My car is diesel.
Yeah.
So tell me
go ahead.
Operationally, and tell me from an engineering standpoint, what we would have to do in the automobile industry to make that, how that would fit.
So the product's too large for cars. It's more geared for trucks. However, that's probably a 2 to 5 year process in terms of getting the whole unit modularized for a truck, getting testing, working with a partner in the trucking industry, and then obviously going through all the necessary things that one needs to do to get it approved for an on-road fuel additive through the EPA testing.
Yeah, a lot of testing goes through that. Obviously, you got the EPA. I understand that part. Yeah. So the applications you would immediately be looking for is what? And what would your I'm sorry?
Stationary large diesel engines, so in the aftermarket, that are used for prime or continuous power, not standby generators, because those don't run enough hours.
Primary power. Okay.
Correct. Yeah, and there is a large market for that.
What is the market? Explain to me the market.
So the market may not be as big in the US as it is in other countries worldwide. If you look at the example, the Caribbean and Central America, a lot of these locales will use diesel fuel or diesel engines for prime power production. So that is definitely.
For what purposes? Tell me all the purposes for the prime diesel fuel.
Well, in these environments, it would be for the general population just to produce fuel. So our Caribbean islands, they will utilize the diesel power to produce electricity. But if you look at
power to produce electricity, that was my point. So this becomes an alternative mechanism for electrical circuits and systems, correct?
Yeah. And another example is in some of these Caribbean islands, there are water purification plants that rely heavily on diesel engines to produce energy to purify the water. Mm-hmm. Mining industry, obviously oil fracking. And then countries that just don't have a good energy infrastructure and a grid. So, you're looking at countries like India and China that would be very lucrative markets for us.
What markets are we replacing in India and China? If I'm in India and I do a lot of business in India and I'm selling a company, tell me about the conversion process, the expense. Tell me what's my sales, what's my pitch to somebody who has, $1 billion energy company that's reliant upon, oil itself, right? And non-diesel or just the diesel fuel. How much money are you going to save me? Take me through that process.
So the beauty of this, the system is portable, it's lightweight, it's easy to move and configure, and there's absolutely no conversion to the engine. One would just connect the system to the post-turbo pipe just before the intake.
So it's an aftermarket. So it's really an aftermarket system. So I don't have to do anything about on the OEM side, correct?
Correct. Yeah. Correct. Okay. And there's no engine modification at all. And sorry, one of the other target markets, which could potentially be absolutely massive, is the marine industry. Obviously, these ships. I lost you for a second.
Yeah, I lost you. I was getting a phone call. It obviously interrupted the video here. Sorry.
That's all right. So the marine industry is also a very large sector that we'd like to target down the road. They have massive engines on board. They have generators on board. They have a huge amount of space with an ample amount of fuel. And a lot of ships now are starting to carry methanol as a primary fuel source.
What percentage of savings would I achieve by utilizing your system?
So the percentage of savings depends on the size of the engine. one has to look at the delta of what is used in terms of the methanol run per hour, which is static for the size reformer, and then what is saved on the diesel engine with respect to the diesel fuel consumption reduction. And that's where the savings come in. If the system is optimized, you're looking at a minimum of $25,000 savings per year in net fuel operating cost. So that takes into account the diesel fuel price and the methanol price and the savings between the two. The ROI for the system is anywhere between 6 to 12 months, depending on how many hours the system runs per day. And we envision that the maintenance cost for the device will be very low over the next 2 to 7 years. And then only maybe every 2 to 3 years, you'll need some maintenance on the machine, which will probably cost a few $1,000s.
Let's talk about the maintenance. Who's going to be performing the maintenance? Obviously, you're the experts in the field. So do you have a maintenance program?
Well, the system is actually quite simple, so there should be very little maintenance that will come with it, and we intend to provide a package that could obviously instruct the end user how to maintain the system. We definitely will want to set up an online support system where we could provide remote access and remote help to the system. And when we have our units configured for the field down the road, we would want to be able to connect them to the web so that we'll be able to provide live real-time analytics with respect to the functioning of the system and to diagnose any potential issues.
Where do you manufacture the systems?
Well, right now our plant is set up just south of Charlotte in a small town called Rock Hill, which is about 30 miles south of the city. And we have a 6,000 square foot space. We're currently not in the manufacturing phase. We set up our whole the company about 1.5 years ago. We have been testing the reformer here in the US since November last year and ramped up things quite substantially in 2019. And over the last 2 months since the end of March, we've actually had tremendous success with reliability and consistency of the reformer to the point where we are achieving around 91% success with each test that we run.
And are you doing these tests internally or are you doing field tests with actual companies?
No, everything's internal at this point.
Mm-hmm. And that's, any companies that would participate in a field test with you to see how the
well, we would like to do that. We don't have a field-ready unit yet. We are hoping to have that ready in about 3 months or so. We have just been using our test reformer with all the analytic equipment attached to it. It's a very capital-intense process, I'm sure you can appreciate. So this is why I'm going to this level now to try to raise funds to really ramp up our in-house activity where we can get more people employed and then get the unit ready for the commercial application.
How much does each machine cost to make?
Manufacturing? We're looking at about 15,000.
15?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And what are you planning on selling for?
Around 30,000.
Around 30,000.
Yeah. Obviously, that manufacturing number may fluctuate in the future depending on parts, etc., and so forth. Right.
And then your distribution model, how are you going to distribute it?
So what we've started to reach out to local companies here in the US. That process is still underway. We haven't been very aggressive with respect to that because we wanted to have things in order internally before we went to that phase. I plan to get into a digital marketing campaign in the near future, which will help with that. We'd like to attend a conference in November in New Orleans called Power Generation International, which I think would be great exposure for us. I've been speaking to individuals there to organize space so that we can be an exhibitor and, broadcast ourselves. Oops, sorry.
Right. Okay. I understand. And then, 3 months, you have a prototype. How much money have you raised to date?
Well, I've been the sole funder of the company. I've raised capital from one individual, $60,000 last year. And
how much did you put in?
Me, I've put in about 300.
300,000.
Yeah.
And 300,000 has gotten you all through the testing phases internally?
Pretty much, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then, so what are you seeking?
Well, I don't know if you got our investor deck, but we did forward that through the internal channel. But on that, we stated we're looking at raising $250,000 for 10% of the company. We actually had a higher valuation last year, and we decided with our group to reduce the valuation to make it more lucrative to early investors to get them involved. So we dropped it to $2.5 million, trying to sell at least 10 to 20%, possibly even more of the company, depending on the interest and feedback we get from potential investors such as yourself. I'm starting to think that 250 would probably be on the low side in terms of this cap raise round, and I'm thinking that 500 to 750 would be more appropriate.
Yeah, I mean, what's 250 going to get you? I mean, 250 is get you some units. But tell me about what are the minimum units you can manufacture? Are you going to own the plant? Are you going to employ people? Are you outsourcing? How are you manufacturing?
So, yeah, great questions. The only thing that we would need to manufacture is the internal secret source of the device, and that's, that'll probably take $100,000 to set up. The rest of the unit is actually all assembled. We purchase third-party supplies and assemble the unit. So the manufacturing process would actually not be very difficult or time-consuming either. We anticipate we could be building a unit, down the road when things are streamlined, 1 unit per shift, and potentially having 2 or 3 shifts during a day. So the manufacturing process itself shouldn't be too long once we have everything streamlined.
Mm-hmm. What's the competition?
There are hydrogen reformers out there that use methanol. There aren't that many of them. Our scientists believe that we have a very unique recipe that puts us ahead of them in terms of the efficiency and the effectiveness of our system. And one of the most about a system is that it is very energy efficient, so it requires very little energy to operate the system. So after the preheating, sorry, I've lost your picture.
Cut out. So sorry. When you get a call and it cuts out. Can you hear me?
That's okay. Yeah, so there are some companies that have similar technology, but we feel that we are superior because our system is essentially energy independent. We've had tests where it utilizes no energy once it's up and running, and that's a very unique
versus other energy
to the system.
Let's take me down that path a little bit, okay? So it uses no energy as opposed to what energy do your competitors use?
I can't comment for exactly what they use because I'm not privy to
right.
Their
well, we're trying to make a comparison. I'm trying to see what the prior, what the prior. I'm going to use prior art from a patent standpoint because I was answering that next question. If you have any IP or you're trying to keep this as more or less as a trade secret and keep it out of that public realm, is that?
So what we want to do in that, we've spoken to a couple of patent attorneys and they suggested that we keep the secret source as a trade secret.
Okay, I got that.
Yeah. However, we do want to patent the actual machine itself. So what we've done here in the US is we've configured the device in our unique way to the point where we're comfortable that is the final setup, and then we will patent that system, and that's contingent on us raising some funds during this round.
That system that important, or is it the secret sauce that makes it important? And what's the difference if you're going to patent a machine without the secret sauce?
Both. You can't they can't be independent of each other. It won't work without the secret source and the way the system's set up.
But my point was the way the system is set up. What's unique about the way the system is set up without the secret sauce?
What's unique about it? It's the way the actual components are integrated with one another.
And the way might be wasting your time is my point. I just don't know. In other words, there's many machines out there, and the way the system's set up, I could put different components in different spots in different places to get around a patent. I'm just not so sure it's the best use of money. If you're keeping the secret sauce as a trade secret, how I put it into a certain configuration might change over time too, based on your efficiencies.
You're 100% correct, and honestly, we don't feel that getting the patents that important. But most of the time, investors do want.
I got it, but I see it from the secret sauce standpoint. It's either it's going to be a secret sauce or it's going to be a patent, right? And the configuration now, it's almost wasting your money. I would think. I mean, again, I haven't seen the details, but I see a lot of machines set up there. I mean, and if I'm not so sure it's patentable, and the question is whether it's worth saving that kind of money. I think you were kind of using that statement to kind of attract me from an investment standpoint rather than you really believing it. Am I correct? Yeah, I sense that. So look, here's the deal. I'm interested in learning further about this. I'd want to see a deck, more details, have more conversations, have my tech people look at it. I do love alternative energy. I think it's interesting how you're doing this conversion process. Might have some different ideas, even in the automobile space. If you're going to go down that path, there's a chance to condense the secret sauce, so to speak, and attract an OEM. I don't know. Like it could be big.
That's always possible. There's so many options down the road, and this is the beginning of this journey.
And like you said, it's very capital intensive, and I understand that, but there might be different ways of going about it. There's there's some thoughts I might have to it. I think it's a deeper conversation, right? So I think the administrators on this call that are actually probably listening to the call as well will send you my independent contact information. Okay. And what we could do is we can have a discussion further and just see where it might be able to take us.
Awesome. I really appreciate your
time. Good job.
Today.
Congrats. Take care.
Thank you. Hey, nice to meet you. Bye.